Welcome to this explainer. If you've been following along, you know we have covered an absolute ton of ground. Well, we've finally made it to part 10, the grand finale of our tutorial series on IPv4 and IPv6 transition technologies, architecture, security, and firewall designs. This entire series was developed by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a really fantastic technology, research, education, and advisory organization based out of Colorado. Now, this explainer is specifically built for you infrastructure and security architects out there who already have a deep grasp of IPv4 and are currently tasked with migrating your organizations to IPv6. Up until now, we've explored the mechanics and the risks of various transition technologies, but theory time is officially over. Today, we're zeroing in exclusively on Chapter 10 to establish the final, non-negotiable operational standard for securing your IPv6 transition. We're going to take all that architectural knowledge and turn it into a concrete, no-nonsense action plan.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, visibility and deprecation. Second, achieving rule set parity. Third, Layer 2 security controls. Fourth, translation security strategies, and we'll wrap it all up with our foundational RFC references.
Let's dive right into Section 1, Visibility and Deprecation, Gaining Control and Removing Liabilities.
So, the very first step here requires aggressive visibility. You absolutely have to deploy an IPv6-capable SIEM, and you need to ensure your NetFlow or IPFX collection natively handles IPv6 address fields. I mean, think about the implications here for a second. If your IPFX templates are only looking at IPv4, you could have an entire universe of malicious traffic traversing your network right now, and it would be completely invisible to your security operations center. You're basically fighting blind. Once you fix that visibility gap, step 2 is rigorously inventorying and documenting all transition mechanisms currently running in your environment. You need to know exactly where every single 6 and 4 tunnel, NAT64 deployment, and DS Lite instance lives, so they can actually be managed.
Right, and once you finally have that visibility, immediate teardown is required. Deprecated tunnels like Teredo and ISATAP present a disproportionate security risk, and let's be honest, they offer zero operational benefit in modern networks. You've got to aggressively drop Protocol 41 at all perimeters, unless it's explicitly documented for a highly specific authorized tunnel broker. You also need to block Teredo on UDP port 3544, both inbound and outbound. Drop the 6-to-4 prefix 2002./16 at your IPv6 perimeter. Unconditionally block the Teredo prefix 2001./32. And just go right to the source by disabling ISATAP on all your hosts and routers. Shutting this stuff down isn't just a best practice, it instantly shrinks an unmonitored attack surface that sophisticated adversaries love to use to bypass traditional perimeter defenses.
Moving right along to Section 2, Achieving Rule Set Parity, the core firewall logic.
The critical takeaway here is establishing strict IPv4 and IPv6 rule set parity. Every single IPv4 permit or deny rule must have a corresponding rule in the IPv6 address family, no exceptions. If you're operating in a modern firewall as code environment, you should be enforcing this by automating parity checking directly within your CI/CD pipelines. You literally configure the pipeline to fail if an IPv4 rule is pushed without its IPv6 equivalent. Doing this entirely eliminates the dual-stack rule gap, which is honestly the single most common and dangerous misconfiguration we see in modern transitions. Closing that gap ensures consistent policy enforcement, completely regardless of the protocol routing the traffic.
Next up is Section 3, Layer 2 security controls protecting the internal edge.
So to solve the rogue router problem and really protect the internal edge, RA Guard is your foundational mechanism. It's defined in RFC 6105. You want to deploy this on all your access switch ports. It acts as a strict gatekeeper, making sure that router advertisements are only permitted from uplink or trunk ports that are actually connected to your authorized infrastructure routers. It just definitively stops a rogue device, whether it's accidental or malicious, from hijacking your local subnet routing and quietly redirecting your local traffic.
But, RA Guard is really just the starting line. You have to systematically lock down the local segment with advanced internal defenses. That means enabling DHCP v6 Guard so server messages are only allowed from authorized ports. This totally prevents rogue DHCP servers from handing out malicious configs. You'll also want to deploy dynamic ND inspection on your access switches that actively validates neighbor advertisement messages straight against your DHCP v6 snooping binding table, which is a great way to protect against address spoofing. And finally, for your really high security segments, the architecture strongly recommends taking a look at SEND per RFC 3971. Send provides actual cryptographic authentication of those NDP messages, which stops the kind of sophisticated spoofing attacks that standard inspection mechanisms might just glaze right over.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Translation Security Strategies, Managing Complex Edge Cases.
When you're bridging IPv4 and IPv6, NAT64 is usually paired with DNS64 to synthesize IPv6 addresses for IPv4-only destinations. But there is a massive vulnerability here. NAT64 and DNS64 are virtually blind without DNSSEC. You absolutely must secure this process by mathematically validating the standard IPv4A records before synthesis ever occurs. If that DNSSEC validation fails, those synthesized AAA records have to be treated as completely untrusted. Because if you don't enforce this validation, you are basically leaving the front door wide open for massive DNS spoofing and redirection attacks right at your translation border.
And moving beyond just DNS, these edge translation controls have to be enforced as uncompromising hardware policies. You must rate-limit NAT64 state creation per source IPv6 address. Just think about the mechanics for a second. Without a hard limit in place, a single compromised host could cause massive state table exhaustion, which would completely topple your translator and cause a network-wide outage. For MAP-T, validate the source address and port directly at the border relay against your assigned map rules. And if you happen to be using DS Lite, you need to firmly authenticate the basic broadband element, the B4, via DHCP-v6. That'll stop B4 spoofing attacks against your AFTR NAT mappings dead in their tracks. Lastly, definitely monitor those IPv6 extension header chains. Attackers love to use really complex, deeply nested headers specifically as an evasion technique to slip past these exact edge controls.
And finally, Section 5, Foundational RFC References, the Internet-Grade Standard.
I actually highly recommend grabbing a quick screenshot of this matrix right now. It maps out the exact RFCs your architecture must align with to survive a rigorous security audit. So you've got RFC 4890, which dictates exactly how you should be filtering ICMPv6 messages in your firewalls. RFC 6010.5, which we just discussed, defines the standard for router advertisement guard. RFC 7123 covers the really critical security implications of running IPv6 over IPv4 networks. RFC 9099 is basically your ultimate comprehensive guide for the operational security of IPv6 networks overall. And RFC 9313 lays out the precise operational considerations of transition technologies, specifically for IP4 as a service. Bottom line, if your internal design documents are not referencing these standards, your architectural foundation is simply not complete.
So, after 10 parts of breaking down architecture, mechanisms, and security designs with Virtualization Options LLC, I want to leave you with a final thought to really challenge your current operational posture. If you were audited today, would your CI/CD pipeline correctly fail an IPv6 parity check? Or are your transition mechanisms currently acting as a massive, completely unmonitored attack surface? It is time to make sure your IPv6 footprint is a strictly documented, hardened architecture and not just an open door into your enterprise. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and best of luck locking down your environments.